Welcome to this new video podcast of the ITSS member series Verona. We are Diletta and Luca from the Human Rights team, and today we have the pleasure to have here with us Lucia Gennari, lawyer at ASGI, an Italian association of juridical studies about immigration. Our podcast today will be about immigration policies, especially regarding the Mediterranean route. I will go now with the first question. So, as we know, states, according to international treaties, are bound to ensure search and rescue at sea. For this purpose, in the context of migrants on the Mediterranean route, we often hear a mechanism called SAR, which is Search and Rescue Zone. We would like to ask you, how does it work in particular? Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. So search and rescue zones are areas of international waters which states declare of their competence for what concerns the provision of search and rescue services at sea. This comes from long-standing maritime traditions which bound, first of all, masters of every ship to intervening in cases of danger at sea to support and provide assistance. But also, during time, international law conventions developed a system to ensure that every part of the sea is covered by state authorities which take the responsibility to directly intervene or coordinate anyway all the actors that can be at sea. So first of all, private ships, then other states' ships, and so on. In the Mediterranean, we have this anomaly, which is connected to the existing migration flows and the attempt of European states to tackle them and to reduce them. And we saw the creation, just like 3 years ago, of the Libyan Search and Rescue Zone, which is useful, let's say functional, for European states to legitimize the intervention of the so-called Libyan authorities that actually intercept or in some cases rescue migrants trying to flee from that country and bring systematically them back to Libya. This allows European states not to have their own ships at sea, and therefore not to have the issue of deciding where to disembark the people. But this is also an important violation of fundamental rights of people at sea, of course, and in our opinion is not really a way to avoid having legal responsibility for the violations.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Lucia, for this let's say, brief explanation of the SAR system and how is working the situation in the Mediterranean Sea right now. But just about that, we'd like to know more about the strategy that European states have employed in the migration crisis stemming from Libya.
Yeah. So this is also directly connected to what I was saying about the search and rescue area established by the Libyan authorities. This is part of one of the main strategies used by the European Union and its states in order to avoid the arrival of migrants to Europe, which we can define the externalization policies. This means trying to delegate a number of activities concerning border control and border procedures to third countries which are non-European. Again, this is a way to interrupt the link, the responsibility link between European action and the violation caused to migrants. And also a way to being more functional in a way. So for what concerns the Mediterranean, the dynamic is really clear, and it concerns, for example, the establishment of the Libyan Coast Guard, the establishment of the search and rescue area, but also the support to Libyan authorities, for example, providing them with patrol vessels, training, political legitimation, and so on. So, and this is a process that regards Libya, but also other countries, and other, the first that you can have in mind is Turkey, for example, but also a number of other African countries. This goes together if we, for example, look at what was written by the European Commission already in 2015 in the EU Agenda of Migration, and now with the EU Pact on Migration. You have a set of different tools to address the migration issue, with the aim of blocking migration. This is at the end the aim. So one is externalization policies, another one is connected to the necessity of improve the return system. And also a third, very important tool is connected to border procedure and border management. We were speaking about the very external border, the maritime border. Then we have the border which is on the territory of external countries, mostly southern countries like Italy, Greece, or Spain. And here, for example, we see the structure, the attempt to structure different kind of tools like hotspots, for example, special border procedure for what concerns the process of asylum requests. Usually these two tools entail the deprivation of personal freedom of migrants at the border or in transit zones. And all together, we have at the end of the day a process of emptying of its meaning the asylum itself. So we have instruments meant to stop the flows, the cooperation with their countries, Libya, Tunisia these days. Border procedures which restrict the space and the possibility to have a fair process, a fair assessment of an asylum procedure, and a lot of efforts in the returns, in the forced returns.
I see. That has been really clear. And it's really interesting because I think this is a trending policies among states to outsourcing borders. I think also outside Europe. And I want to expand now about another issue that has been really a growing trend during the pandemic, and it's really a mixing between immigration and pandemics, which is the use of ferries and ships as quarantine ships. And if I remember well, it all started in the April of 2020, which is nearly the beginning of the pandemic in Italy. And I would like to know a little more about that. I know that ASGI have done a huge analysis about that.
Yeah, the pandemic, I would say, pushed to some extremes a lot of dynamic connected to migration. In this case, we saw, first of all, as you said, in April 2020, the approval of an interministerial decree which declared all the ports in Italy unsafe for migrants rescued outside the Italian search and rescue zone. And afterwards, another decree which established for the first time the use of quarantine for people, which is a paradox, for which Italian ports couldn't be considered safe. So for these people, the measures connected to the self-isolation for avoiding the spread of the pandemic or of the virus, for these people, these measures had to be held on quarantine ships. That means private ships that the state pays to private companies, run by the Red Cross, which provides for all the services on that. where people spend like at the beginning 14, but sometimes even more days. They were used then in a lot of different situations, also beyond this one. For example, for a period, people were migrants which were tested positive on mainland, who were already like since weeks or even months or years in Italy, were just brought during the night with no individual decision that stated that, and are randomly brought to these ships in Sicily, also from the north of Italy or from Rome, for example. So the point in using these ships, there are several critical points, I would say. They are connected, first of all, I would say, from a symbolic perspective, because the state is forcing people who were just rescued at sea, coming from Libya mainly, to spend some more time at sea after a very traumatic experience. And also, it's an attempt that has been tried also in the past by the government to use ships, for example, as hotspots, let's say, and Italy was condemned by the European Court of Human Rights for this kind of practice. Then, of course, the health assistance that can be provided on these ships, which are not at ports, they are like just left at anchor, so it can be also very long. It can take days sometimes to do the disembarkation, for example, if there are bad weather conditions. And in fact, there were people dying on the ships or immediately after because they couldn't be attended in time. And there was also an attempt, a suicide, a person committed suicide throwing himself from one of these ships. So it's very difficult both from to guarantee physical assistance and also psychological assistance. Third point, it's a way of, it's a discriminatory measure, because if you think about how normally foreign people or citizens are obliged to do this self-isolation, it's totally a different situation. And in normal situation, people are not like physically forced of staying in a certain place, and if they breach the measure, they get an administrative sanction. Here you have a policeman or sometimes a private guard physically impeding you to move. So it's a way of for us, it's a way of, it's a form of illegitimate or not non-regulated deprivation of personal freedom and a discriminatory measure.
Thank you. Just one last question regarding this matter. Have Italy been held accountable by someone because of this forced quarantine in the ships, or still no concern have been officially raised regarding it?
For what concerns, for example, the deaths that have happened, also, like, it's important to underline that 2 of these deaths regarded unaccompanied minors, so people of 15, 16 years old. There are pending criminal investigation going on. For what concerns the practice that I was describing before of arbitrarily bringing people from cities to the quarantine ship, yes, and the measure was suspended, in fact. For what concerns the establishment of the system itself, not yet. But I don't exclude that there will be legal actions going on concerning the legitimacy of this practice, and for sure about the discriminatory nature of it.
Okay, yeah. So thank you for the conversation. That was very enlightening for us. I'm sure we learn new things about immigration policies, at least here in Italy. And thank you again for joining us today. And that's it. Thank you.